Imagine for a minute that you had endless energy, motivation, resources, and time to achieve any goal set in front of you. Imagine that you were confident, strong, powerful, and capable of overcoming any obstacle that comes in your way. Imagine that your body always did what you wanted it to, and you felt balanced, inspired, and confident. How did that feel? Was that image good? Were there any doubts? Maybe even fears? I've had the privilege of working as a naturopathic physician for the past 13 years, and I've seen patients come through all sorts of situations and trials. It's been both rewarding and challenging at times, but the one thing that I find binds a patient's progress more than anything else is their own limiting beliefs around health. Too often I see patients feeling stuck, lost, helpless to their circumstances. They can feel like they have no answers to their greatest health concerns. If they do have a diagnosis, they can be paralyzed with fear by the implications that it can have for their future. They can feel like a victim to their circumstances and completely out of control. This leaves people crippled, frustrated, isolated, and completely alone. But what if we're identifying with the wrong story? What if we're not meant to label ourselves with our symptoms or illness like a justification for suffering, but rather a wake-up call to a journey of transformation? What if there was another way? That no matter what we face, it's our willingness to participate in it that transforms us. And in turn, that brings revelations and understanding of ourself and where we need to heal. Many times in my office, patients will come in and they'll say, you know, if it was anything else, I could deal with this. But this I cannot. But what if that's the point? Everything else did come up, and it didn't get our attention. It finally got noticeable enough for us to try and change our lives. I'll ask patients in my office, what would it take for you to have to make the change you know you need to make? Maybe to start an exercise regime, maybe to quit smoking, maybe to change a stressful job or relationship. And it's amazing. People will come up with the worst case scenario: cancer, depression, heart disease, a broken relationship. But is that really what we want to create? Do we want to wait until we're in total self-destruction before we change? We are always creating our lives, consciously and with intention, or unconsciously and without awareness. Which would you rather do? Another thing that patients will sometimes say in my office is they'll wish they had a different body. They'll say, my body's not working for me. Or, can I replace it? But what if your body's actually doing the best job it can with what it's got? We actually don't have a replacement. It doesn't have an ulterior motive. It doesn't have a hidden agenda. It's yours, and only yours. It's intricately designed to tell us what is going on. And we need to be able to listen and tune into what that is. It's not saying, I'm going to make you pay. Why would we intentionally want to create suffering for ourselves? It's never intentional, but it's always purposeful. The truth is, we are our own author and director of our health. When we listen to those internal messages is when we can start to make the change. It's not that we don't need other people to support us in our journey, but ultimately it is up to us. There is no magic pill. We are on a unique and individual journey of transformation. This became real for me about 9 years ago with the birth of my first daughter. I had, which I can now look back and say, a very difficult and traumatic birth, and a very slow and long physical recovery. However, being a self-proclaimed perfectionist at the time, I didn't give myself a lot of opportunity to heal. I expected a lot, and I pushed on. It wasn't long before I was juggling all my roles, being a mother, a milk factory, a business owner, a doctor, and the breadwinner in my family. And I got to the point where I wasn't doing it very well at all. A few weeks later, I woke up one morning with numbness down the right side of my arm. I brushed it off, thought I slept funny, not that I was sleeping that much at that point, and pushed on. However, after about 8 months, I decided I need to get some answers, which ultimately led to a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, or MS. This both shocked and devastated me, but I knew in my heart that that was not my story, and it was not going to declare my future. I began to give myself permission to really do the work that I needed and tap into the healing that I required many, many, many months ago. And it went beyond just diet and self-care, but actually deeper work around my limiting beliefs around health, around the power of forgiveness for myself and for others. And it took me about 2 years to find my cure. But I want you to understand that we're all human, and we all have a story, and it's up to us to claim our power around our health. I want to equip you with 5 steps and tools where you can start to own your own story. The first is to get educated. We need a foundation of knowledge in order to understand what's going on in our bodies. We have to understand why we get sick, the actual root causes, so that we know what to do about them. These can include things like genetics, nutrient deficiencies, toxicity, electromagnetic radiation, chronic infections, stress and trauma. We could have all of them. We may just have a few. But we need to get informed. Read books and blogs, listen to podcasts and talks, go to seminars and workshops. Knowledge itself is power, as written by Francis Bacon. Secondly, as we move into a process of knowledge, we then are equipped to start understanding what we need to do. We can then seek out avenues of support to help us reach to our goal. Empowerment is a vital step to you owning your story. You have to recognize that you can heal before you ever will. With increased responsibility also comes increased results. Recognize you have the power to change your life. Third, as you understand and take the authority over your health, you can then recognize you have to be accountable for it. Healing is an active process. It's not a passive one. It's not about what others are going to do for us, but rather what we are going to do for ourselves. We create our change by boldly recognizing the avenues that we need to heal and then doing it step by step. As we become accountable for our lives, the reality is sometimes we have to change our lives. Other times, we just have to change our perspective. This is referring to how we see the world around us. We all have a different point of view, like a colored lens that filters the world that we see. It's based on our upbringings, our backgrounds, our experiences, our opportunities, and our challenges. It's often not what we do or don't do, however, but rather how we feel about it. The emotional turmoil we can feel from making a decision or not making the decision can be the very thing that's keeping us stuck. Every decision has a consequence. However, the emotional turmoil we feel or around the judgment on ourselves being good or bad, is actually what may be holding us back. This is where our limiting beliefs come in. If we don't believe healing is possible, for whatever story we're telling ourselves, maybe it's finances, maybe it's resources, maybe it's support, maybe it's genetics, how can we heal? As written by Bruce Lipton, our beliefs control our bodies, our minds, and thus our lives. Ironically, many patients come into my office, and through it all, they actually recognize that their illness was their greatest gift. It brought them to life, to become aware of their perceptions and their choices and their actions and their consequences. They became alive. Lastly, as we step into our process of owning our story, the reality is we have to commit to ourselves and the process. The hard part here is that we actually have to let go of the expectations of the outcome and rather embrace the journey. We don't know what the future holds. What we may perceive as our biggest failure might actually be our greatest step towards success. Believe in yourself. When you step into that decision, you invite the courage to change. When you've stepped and committed to yourself, that's when you find your community of support. They're the ones that are ultimately going to inspire, motivate, and encourage you. They're also going to be the ones that believe in you. You do not need to walk this journey alone. Share your story, be vulnerable, and have the ability to honor each other's courage. #I see your courage. You never know by your steps of bravery who you will also impact to create change as well. To live your best life and impact others, is that not our greatest calling? I leave you with this quote. You are put on this earth to achieve your greatest self, to live out your purpose, and do it courageously. Thank you.